You don't cry in front of people. You don't explain what's wrong. You disappear and somehow everyone thinks you're fine. And that's the part that stays with you, isn't it? Because you know you're not fine, not even close. But here's what nobody tells you. Going quiet when you're hurting isn't weakness. It's one of the most psychologically complex responses a human being can have. This isn't shutdown, this is a nervous system response. There is a specific protection mechanism running in your system, and it's been running for longer than you realize. By the end of this, you'll understand the exact moment your brain made a decision that changed how you handle pain forever, and why that decision was never a flaw. But before we get there, we need to talk about what it actually feels like from the inside. Someone who loves you is standing right in front of you. They're not yelling. They're just looking at you, waiting. And you can feel that look land somewhere in your chest before a single word comes out. They want you to talk. They want you to explain what's going on. And you genuinely want to give them something, but your throat just closes. Your mind goes completely flat. Not because you don't care, not because you're punishing them, but because something inside you just locks. And then comes the sentence you've heard before. You never let me in. Why won't you just talk to me? Sometimes I don't think you feel anything at all. But that's not what's happening, because what's actually happening in that moment has a name. And once you hear it, the silence will never feel the same again. And this is where it gets interesting. We're all taught that emotions work like a pressure valve. Feel something, express it, release, don't. But your brain doesn't work that way. When emotional pain hits a certain intensity, your nervous system doesn't open the valve, it reroutes. Think of it like a circuit breaker, not a failure, a feature. Your system detects overload and cuts power to the areas that feel most exposed. Speech is one of the first things that goes offline, not because you have nothing to say, but because language lives in the prefrontal cortex, and when your threat response activates, blood flow shifts away from it. You go quiet because your brain is prioritizing survival over explanation. That's not emotional unavailability. That's your system doing exactly what it was designed to do. But here's the part most people miss. This response doesn't develop in adulthood, it develops in childhood, which means your silence has a history. And that history is where everything starts to make sense. Picture this. You're somewhere that should feel safe. Maybe it's late. The lights are low. Someone you trust says something, not cruel, just careless. One of those sentences that shouldn't land hard, but somehow lands everywhere, and you feel it before you even process it. Something tightens across your shoulders. Your jaw sets without you deciding to do that. They move on. They're already talking about something else. But you're still back there, sitting with that sentence like it's something you swallowed and can't get rid of. They ask if you're okay, you say yes, not because you're lying, but because by the time you could explain what just happened inside you, the moment has already passed, and the explanation would cost more than you have left. This is what psychologists call emotional internalization, not suppression. That's forcing something down. Internalization is when your pain turns inward because outward expression feels unsafe. Even with people you love. You didn't learn this from nowhere. Somewhere, at some point, expressing hurt had a cost. Maybe nobody came. Maybe someone made it worse. Maybe you were told you were too sensitive, so your system adapted. Keep it inside, stay readable, stay safe. That's not a flaw. That's something that protected you. But here's the part almost nobody talks about. Wait, this is where most people get this completely wrong. Your silence isn't the problem. Misunderstanding it is. It doesn't just affect how you feel, it changes how other people experience you. And that gap between who you actually are and who they think you are is where most of your hardest relationships live. And it doesn't stop there. That same silence that protects you also hides you. And there's something else happening here that most people never notice. Your silence isn't empty, it's processing. While it looks like nothing on the outside, Your mind is actually organizing everything. Every word, every tone shift, every small detail people miss. You're not reacting in real time, you're absorbing in real time. And that changes everything. Because by the time you're ready to speak, you're not responding to one moment anymore, you're responding to the entire pattern behind it. And that's why it feels so hard to explain. Not because you don't understand your emotions, but because you understand too much at once. Now think about two kinds of rivers. One is loud. It moves fast, hits rocks, makes noise. You always know where it is. That's one kind of emotional system, expressive, immediate, visible. Now picture something else. An underground river, silent, invisible, moving with pressure through solid ground. You'd never know it was there unless you knew exactly where to look. That's you. Your emotions don't disappear when you go quiet, they go deeper, and they shape things slowly in ways even you don't always see. To other people, your silence looks like nothing, but inside it's everything. So full that speaking feels like opening a floodgate. But here's what makes this even more powerful. In relationships, that silence gets misunderstood as distance. At work, it gets mistaken for disengagement. But when things actually fall apart, people come to you. Because they've learned something about you, even if they can't explain it. You don't break under pressure, you hold it. And this is where everything connects. That same silence that confuses people is the exact same thing that allows you to sit with someone else's pain without needing to fix it or escape it. Most people can't do that. They get uncomfortable, they reach for solutions, they change the subject. You just stay. And for someone in pain, that stillness is the rarest thing in the world. Sit with that for a second, because most people have had it completely backwards about you your entire life. You're not less emotional, you feel at a different frequency. That's why you go quiet. Not because there's nothing inside you, but because there's too much. Your silence isn't the absence of emotion, it's the result of too much of it. You don't speak because you don't care. You don't speak because it's overwhelming. The people in your life might forget that moment, but you remember everything about it. The tone, the shift, the exact feeling in the air before anything was said. That's not a weakness. That's depth most people spend their whole lives searching for and never quite reach. You are not closed off. You are carrying more than most people will ever understand, and you've been carrying it quietly because at some point you had to, and you're still here. That matters more than you think. The truth about you is simple. You were never cold. You were full. If you've ever felt like you're drowning on the inside while looking completely fine on the outside, that's silence you've been carrying. We talk about it here. Subscribe. Not for the content, for the clarity.